All right, so welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be kind of stepping into the world of visual merchandising and, get this, we're going to be focusing on something that you see every day, but you probably don't think too much about, mannequins.
Mannequins, yeah.
And our source material for this is, it's a blog post from qianmeng.org, and it's called Notes on Photography. This is part 184, and it's called Mannequins and Mismatched Style.
It's amazing how, something like a mannequin can kind of reveal so much about like retail strategy and cultural perceptions, even
Right.
how, stores are trying to connect with you maybe on a subconscious level.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this blogger, their name is Ang, and they were walking by a clothing store that was getting ready for Chinese New Year, and they noticed something kind of intriguing about the mannequins. The outfits that the mannequins were wearing were mismatched, and that really kind of caught their eye.
Yeah. And I think what's so interesting here is that like this simple observation leads to a whole bunch of questions like, why would a store do that?
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't even register that detail. But it says a lot about how retailers are kind of using these mannequins to shape our perceptions. They're silent salespeople.
So you're saying mannequins aren't just about displaying clothes, they're part of like a bigger strategy.
Yeah, totally. Visual merchandising is a carefully orchestrated art. It's about grabbing attention, creating a brand image, and hopefully influencing buying decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And mannequins play a really important role in that. They're not just, these static figures. They're supposed to project an idea, a lifestyle, even an aspiration.
Okay. So Aang noticed some specific details about the mannequins that made them stop and think, right? They described them as having large frames, broad shoulders, and they were even wearing wigs. Gold wigs, to be exact.
Wow. Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting, right? I mean, Aang even suggested that these mannequins, maybe didn't align with traditional Chinese aesthetics of beauty.
So if the store was trying to appeal to customers celebrating Chinese New Year, why use mannequins that might clash with those sensibilities?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are a few possibilities. Maybe the store was making like a conscious choice to kind of like break from tradition and present a more modern image, an edgier image. Or maybe it was just a matter of practicality. Like they had these mannequins and they just dressed them for the occasion without really thinking about it too much.
It could even be like a budgetary constraint. Maybe they couldn't afford a whole new set of mannequins just for the holiday.
Right, exactly. But even if it's unintentional, those choices still send a message. And that's what I think makes visual merchandising so fascinating. It's a language that we often understand without even realizing it.
So we've got this blogger who's interested in these mismatched outfits on mannequins. And that's leading us to think about like cultural perceptions of beauty and maybe budgets and maybe even a store that's trying to make some kind of statement. So where do we go from here?
So this kind of brings us to like a really important aspect of visual merchandising and marketing in general, and that's representation. What we see in shop windows and advertising, it all kind of feeds into like our understanding of beauty and what's considered ideal.
So, okay, so let's talk about this idea of representation. What does that actually mean when we're thinking about mannequins and retail?
Well, it's really about, reflecting the diversity of the world we live in. Think about it. If a store only uses mannequins that fit like one very narrow definition of beauty, what kind of message does that send to people who don't fit that mold?
Yeah, you're saying it could be kind of exclusionary, like they're saying this isn't for you.
Exactly. And that's where the blogger's observation about traditional Chinese aesthetics is really interesting. It kind of highlights how crucial it is for stores and for retailers to consider cultural context when they're making decisions about visual merchandising.
Because, I mean, what one culture might find really appealing, another might not. And if a store is trying to connect with a specific customer, they need to make sure that their mannequins are speaking the right language.
Exactly. It's about, sending a message that actually resonates with that target audience.
Yeah.
And that message goes beyond just the clothes themselves. It's about the whole package, including the mannequins and how they're styled.
So we're talking about way more than just fashion here. This is about cultural sensitivity, representation, and making sure that brands are inclusive in how they present themselves.
Absolutely. And I think this is where the consumer has a lot of power, right? By paying attention to these details and choosing to spend our money, with brands that are prioritizing representation, I think we can really help drive change in the retail industry.
It's like voting with our wallets, right? Choosing to shop at stores that reflect our values and that make us feel seen.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes it's about, actually saying something. Like if you see something that doesn't feel right, Whether it's a mannequin that seems to perpetuate some kind of harmful stereotype, or maybe just a lack of diversity in a store's advertising, we have the power to say something and demand better.
I like that. It's about understanding that we're not just passive shoppers. We can actually play a role in shaping the world around us, even through something as simple as choosing where we shop.
Right. And that takes us back to this blogger's experience. They saw something that a lot of people might not have even noticed, but it made them think. And now we're having this whole conversation about visual merchandising and cultural representation and the power of the consumer.
It's like they found some secret code that helped them understand how retail works on a deeper level.
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting, right? We're uncovering these hidden messages and kind of thinking about how they impact us, like how they impact our perceptions and the choices we make and, ultimately our culture.
So it makes you wonder how much of this is intentional on the part of the retailers. Are they really thinking about every detail? Or are some of these choices just made without much thought at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's probably a mix of both. Some brands are very strategic and they really think this stuff through, but others might be more, I guess you could say, reactive, just following trends or working within their budget.
But even those choices that seem unintentional can have a big impact, right? Like we were saying before, it's like a language, whether we realize we're speaking it or not.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's why I think it's so important to kind of be mindful, like to pay attention to the messages that we're sending and the messages that we're getting, both as consumers and as creators.
So what does all of this mean for our listener who's now like suddenly super aware of mannequins everywhere they go? Well, it means that the next time they're walking through the mall or they're, online shopping, they're going to look at those mannequins a little differently.
Yeah, instead of just seeing clothes on a stand,
Hmm.
you might start to think of them more like messengers. Like, what are they trying to tell us about the brand? You know, about their idea of beauty, about who's in and who's out.
It's like they're holding up this mirror to our culture
Right.
and reflecting all of our values, our aspirations, but also, our biases.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And you know what? Sometimes what we see in that reflection might make us feel a little uncomfortable. They might challenge us to think differently or make us question the messages we've been getting for years.
But that's okay. I mean, sometimes feeling a little uncomfortable is a good thing. It can help us grow.
Totally agree. And, this deep dive, it's not about making anybody feel bad or pointing fingers. It's more about just raising awareness, sparking some curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
encouraging people to think critically about, the world around them.
So next time you see a mannequin, really take a second to look at it. What's its posture like? What kind of expression does it have? What does it seem to be saying about the kind of life you could have if you buy these clothes?
Right. And ask yourself, who does this mannequin remind me of? And how does that make me feel?
It's about understanding that these figures, even though they're not alive, they actually have power. They can change the way we think about beauty, make us want certain things, even affect our self-esteem.
Yeah. And the more we understand that power, the more we can control how we react to it. We can support brands that share our values, and we can speak up and ask for more diversity, more inclusivity. It's not just up to the stores.
We're not just, standing here watching the world of fashion happen. We can actually change things, one choice, one observation at a time.
This has been a really great conversation. Thanks for joining us.
And listeners, we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
What have you noticed? What interesting mannequin moments have you seen? Share your thoughts, your questions, anything. Let's keep learning from each other. And until next time, happy deep diving.